Oklahoma's always in the past accepted qualifying education courses that were taken prior to 2008 for qualifying education for people receiving their license or going for their certification after 2008. Okay? Bear with me a second here. So a trainee who was upgrading certified residential, he took all the original qualifying courses that were needed except for the 20 hours of elective to go to certified residential. He turned in qualifying courses that he took prior to 2008 that were tested, 15-hour courses, and the board approved those courses. When the ASC came the last time, they said that was incorrect, and they suspended that appraiser's license until he took currently approved qualifying courses that had been approved since 2008. Okay, then we have question 10 in the FAQ, which I'm wondering if this is the same person that sent this in, but it says, I am a trainee appraiser preparing to get my certified residential credential. For my initial qualifying education to become a trainee appraiser, I completed 80 hours of basic appraisal principles and procedures in 2003 from a proprietary school that no longer exists. My state appraiser regulatory agency said any courses taken before the current edition of the real property appraiser qualification criteria were no longer considered valid according to the AQB. Why can't these original hours count toward the qualifying education requirement for my certified residential credential? The response from the qualifications board says that the current edition of the real property appraiser qualification criteria went into effect January 1st, 2008. However, the criteria do not contain any provision that invalidates qualifying education successfully completed prior to that date. As with all AQB criteria, states may create requirements that are more restrictive. If so, you'll need to clarify this with your state. From the AQB's perspective, courses that were eligible in 2003 would remain valid towards the 2008 criteria appraiser qualifications board. So, why would the ASC suspend that person's license for those 20 elective hours when this is a FAQ on the website?
Well, let me say one thing real quickly, and then Dave's going to answer your question, because this is really an AQB question. The subcommittee doesn't suspend anybody. We would give direction to the state, possibly in this case, and I'm not saying that this actually happened, because I would want to go back and really review the scenario you're giving, but the subcommittee would direct the state to remove an appraiser potentially if they had not fulfilled the requirements, the AQB requirements. But we do not, at this point, take that action ourselves.
That his license had to be suspended until those 20 elective hours were courses that were approved after, past the 2008 criteria date. So, but then this right here, and it's just like for me, that's another part of mine. I want to go for my certified general. I took the majority of my income courses prior to 2008. Before, the board told me those would still count. But now since this happened, the board is telling me that they won't count, and I'll have to take them all over again. So we need some clarification on this.
The challenge we have, the foundation, we're in the threshold setting business. That's what we do. We set the base, and states can go higher, and some do, and frankly, we wish they wouldn't, because it messes everything up with reciprocity and everything else. My personal opinion is, if you're taking it, when the time you took the course, it was on the state approved list.
Right.
I think you're good. There may be some individual circumstances here that we're not privy to, but if you.
Now they're interpreting all this to be, everything has to be a course that was approved by the AQB for the 2008 criteria. The state hasn't gone in and changed their rules, their certifications, or anything. Now they are interpreting it to mean that.
Well, we've had some states say from January 1, 2008, we're only going to give credit for courses that are through the course approval program of the AQB. And we're like, no, we don't want you to do that.
Right.
Particularly in the area of CE, where you give a 2-hour luncheon presentation, you get 2 hours of credit, they're never going to submit that to the course approval program. So you have states that are trying to raise the bar, but in doing so, they're making errors in judgment, I think. But so if you want to talk about this afterwards, or send me an email, david@appraisalfoundation.org, we can maybe get some more information about it.
Okay.
Good idea.
Yeah, and feel free to copy
next
me,
question.
and I'll, if there's something that the ASC can offer in terms of assistance
Okay.
on what
Okay,
happened,
yeah,
be happy to do
because
so.
This is off on,
Next question.
And a muck is an appraisal term, you guys. I use it in my reports all the time. Jim, I apologize if I didn't catch this in your presentation. I know you touched on it, but for years the ASC had the nuclear option of just decertifying a whole state, never did it. And now you say that you've been given the ability to apply different sanctions, lesser sanctions, to bring states in line. What are some of these sanctions?
There's two interim sanction authorities that were given to the subcommittee. One is to remove appraisers or appraisal management companies from the National Registry for up to 90 days if a state is woefully out of compliance on for some issue. I mean, say it'd have to be a pretty bad thing. Say the governor decided to disband the appraisal program and you had 100 complaints that hadn't been dealt with. Maybe the subcommittee would take a look at taking such an action. But again, it would have to be a pretty dramatic problem at the state before the subcommittee would take such an action.
That's only for an AMC?
No, appraisers or AMCs. And then the subcommittee is also given kind of an open additional sanctioning authority that we can use there is no definition. It just says we can take interim sanctions against a state prior to non-recognition. So that could be fines, I think is the thing that comes to most people's mind immediately. The problem is, do you fine a state that is already having a lot of financial problems, and the root of their problem might be a lack of resources? Now, I will say that one of the big problems out there is states, when the system was set up, the idea was it'd be a self-funding system in most states. You have some small states where it would probably never work. But the fees that come into the state were meant to support that state program, and not the taxpayer, but appraisers who are also taxpayers, I realize. But it's supposed to be really a self-funding type of situation. But what happens in many of the states is the fees go into the general fund. And then the appraisal program has to go back on bended knee, begging for money from the state, which, as most of you probably are aware, in a lot of states, that's a hard sell right now. And even when times were good, it was a hard sell, because appraisers are competing against, schools and roads and terrorism and just little issues like that. So when the appraisal program comes to the state, it's like, yeah, well, we got higher priorities. The other problem is a lot of states that get the money, states will come in and sweep it. So you've got $1 million sitting in your account, and the state says, hey, we're underfunded, we need some more money. They go and they sweep that money.
Thank you, Jim.
I have a question going back to the BPOs, and I'm going to oversimplify the question. The facts are that Pennsylvania has, New Jersey is presently in the throes of probably going to legalize another, I'm going to say 25,000 appraisers. In New Jersey, you can do legal BPOs, legal valuations. Are your groups collectively going to recognize these people, regulate them, put them to the same fines, penalties and us? I mean, what's going to happen to this whole new breed of people allowed to run around the state giving market value opinions?
Well, so you're talking about 25,000 people are going to be able to do the BPOs? Is that the same kind of thing that you're talking? I mean, is this the same issue? Okay. Well, our authority begins and ends with Title 11. So as far as the subcommittee is concerned, I'm not sure whether we would have any authority. I mean, if the state was allowing those folks to do appraisals without a license or certification, yeah, there would be an issue with the subcommittee. But if the state has made a decision to allow brokers or anybody else to provide valuation products outside of federally related transactions, I don't think the subcommittee would have an opinion on that.
Yes.
With the consumer now able to file a complaint online with this hotline that's coming on board in January, right?
No, I'm not sure when the
But it
hotline
is
will
in
be
the
stood
near
up.
future.
It's
But it's the near future.
in process.
The concern I have is the appraiser, we're the only ones being monitored. Why don't we just have one master list, the bank, the appraiser, the reviewer, the underwriter, and just have one whole list and grade everybody all at once? Then that way, when the loan goes in default, then we know exactly why. You know, because we're just being too monitored. I mean, I've been doing this since 1990. I had to get my fingerprinted, sent to the FBI. Now you're telling me we need to do more extensive background checks. I mean, at what point is it maybe it's not the appraiser, that maybe you're over-regulating it? Because with 86,000 appraisers left in the United States, based on the National Registry, you know, at the rate you're going, within 5 years, this is going to be moot. You're losing over 6,000 appraisers a year. And you want to raise the bar? Well, Spain has a higher education level than we do, and what is that country right now? Greece has a higher education level than we do. Where is Greece right now? Maybe changing the bar is not so much with education, maybe with more training.
What, was there a question? I mean,
The question is, if the consumer files a complaint against me, and then it goes on the National Registry list, and I'll never have that off the list.
no, that's not true. That's
Well,
not true.
because-
If somebody files a complaint, I didn't say this before, so let me be clear about what the hotline is. The hotline is open to anybody. This is some of the reasons that it's been tedious to get set up is it's completely unique. Congress gave us something that we can't really go to another model to replicate. It's open to anybody. Most hotlines are only open to consumers or to some specific constituency. This hotline, anybody can call in. Appraisers, lenders, consumers, anybody. So you have to be prepared to answer those questions or deal with those complaints. It's also specific to complaints of USPAP violations and appraiser independence violations. When we get a complaint, we will not retain, at least in the first phases, we will not really retain any information. We will only glean the information through our website or through our call center that allows us to take in non-personal information, non-private information, but tells us what the nature of the complaint is, what the type of complainant, who the complaint is against, and we then refer that to the appropriate state and federal agency to take care of that. From a subcommittee standpoint, we're not going to be keeping any names, making any lists, or anything like that other than maybe some aggregated information just to make sure that the hotline is working and see if people are actually going through the entire process to get their referral. Does that address your question?
Well, that's fine.